communism, or animalism, as defined in George Orwell's Animal Farm, the theory derived from Karl Marx and Old Major, is defined as a society in which all property is publicly owned and the nation's wealth is divided among citizens who are seen as equals. In both Russia and the Manor Farm, under the lead of Lenin, Stalin, and Trotsky, or Snowball and Napoleon, the people and animals fought to abolish their current ruling system so that they could live in a communist or animalist nation respectively. As the Russian Revolution progressed, Joseph Stalin, portrayed as Napoleon, takes over the so-called equal government as a tyrant, after he exiled his leading partner, slaughtered his country's population, and thus created an environment worse for the people of Russia, or the farm, in comparison to life under the Tsar, or Mr. Jones, as expressed by George Orwell. Once the leader of the first USSR government, Vladimir Lenin, had died in 1924, his responsibilities had fallen onto Joseph Stalin and his partner Leon Trotsky. In George Orwell's Animal Farm, there is no character resembling Lenin. However, many of his ideals are represented in Snowball. The leadership of the formerly named Manor Farm becomes the responsibility of two young boars, Napoleon being Stalin and Snowball being Trotsky. Just like the events following the Russian Revolution, many major decisions needed to be made for an animalist society to be formed, and with two opposing leaders, this became impossible. Napoleon, with a reputation for getting his way, seemed to overrule his counterpart, Snowball, the more inventive pig, in many aspects of governing. By using propaganda through Squealer, Napoleon was able to change the beliefs of the animals and get his opposition exiled out of the farm with their support. In comparison to Soviet Russia, Stalin took advantage of the only legal media source, the Pravda newspaper, to spread invalid information and edited images to form his beliefs in the minds of the people. Consequently, Stalin got Trotsky exiled from Russia from forged knowledge of the truth in order for him to be the last standing leader in which he could make all the decisions. In both scenarios, the up-and-coming tyrants were able to cause the citizens to second-guess their actual memory because they were being told otherwise. If an individual was against these beliefs, they would be eradicated. The turn of power from each respective equal government was extremely evident when the formally set specific commandments were being altered. Before the revolution, in both situations, there was ideals given by Karl Marx and Old Major about how a perfect society would be formed, and once the revolutions took place, there were strict guidelines for their utopia to arrive and stay. When the power-hungry individuals named Stalin and Napoleon were placed in charge of their respective nation, each decided that the rules did not apply to them, which later turned into them changing the rules altogether to suit their coming of tyranny. Specifically, both Stalin and Napoleon took it upon themselves to slaughter an immense amount of people they claimed to be traitors, aptly named the Purge, which went against the rule that all citizens are equal, and that whatever goes upon four legs or has wings was a comrade. In George Orwell's Animal Farm, Napoleon even went as far as adjusting the commandment, stating, "No animal shall kill any other animal," to add, "without reason," and force the animals to believe his nonsense. In no way did the breaking of these laws help the people of Russia or the animals of Animal Farm. However, it strengthened the tyrant's power immensely. In both situations, the purge marked a turning point in the holding of power, as it showed that the rules did not apply to Stalin or Napoleon. In their equal societies, they saw themselves as the greatest and deserved unlimited power. With power-hungry leaders ruling a nation, it is inevitable for infinite power to fall into the hands of a tyrant, as it is human nature to yearn for control. Just like in George Orwell's Animal Farm, the change of the Russian government ended with Joseph Stalin holding infinite power over Russia. Although the people of Russia and the animals of Animal Farm fought with their lives to overthrow their current terrible government, both nations ended up in worse conditions than they were in previous. The Tsar, Nicholas II, and Mr. Jones were awful leaders of their people. However, the people had not seen cruelty until Napoleon and Stalin came into power. Both tyrants did not believe in supporting their people as much as they wanted Russia and the farm to thrive. The people and the animals were forced to work much harder and for far longer while obtaining less food than before, which was almost non-existent. This infuriated the citizens. However, there was nothing they could do as they fought for these men to lead them. Towards the end of the novel, there was a scene depicting Napoleon with his fellow Boers calling themselves more equal than the other animals. This perfectly portrays the Russian leaders as Stalin and his comrades told the Russian people the exact same thing. Neither example make any sense in a nation that was supposed to be thriving on equality, with the vast majority suffering and few living in luxury. In the end, the tyranny of Russia and the farm, created by Stalin and Napoleon, did nothing but make their society and economy far worse than it was previously. The only concept that both situations exemplify is that any person, regardless of their royal blood, has the power to place themselves in a position of complete power if they are able to manipulate their surrounding people to follow their unjust rules. Although both examples show us the disgusting truth of the reality of a communist government, George Orwell's Animal Farm gives readers a perfect portrayal of the change in power through Napoleon's acts of exiling his opposition and purging his own nation, which resulted in a society that was far worse for the animals than under its original leader, Mr. Jones. Just like in the real Russian Revolution, there were specific turns of power that were marked by events and explained how Stalin affected his people in George Orwell's novel. The ideals of Karl Marx and Old Major that were meant to reach utopia are impossible to achieve and should have always stayed as just that, ideas. Be formed. And once the revolutions took place, there were strict guidelines for their utopia to arrive. Speak for itself.